Learning a language like English without ever seeing a single word, no textbooks, no flashcards, no written exercises. It seems impossible, doesn't it? Yet, this is the extraordinary journey of a blind man who defied the odds and mastered English solely through the power of listening. From the start, his challenges were monumental. Without sight, traditional learning methods were inaccessible. But instead of being deterred, he embraced the auditory world as his primary tool for learning. He listened to English podcasts, audiobooks, and music, immersing himself in the language's rhythm and sounds. Radio shows and interviews became his teachers, exposing him to real-world conversations. He adopted unique strategies, such as repeating phrases he heard to perfect his pronunciation and mimicking native speakers to grasp intonation and accent. Over time, these consistent efforts turned challenges into strengths. His heightened auditory focus allowed him to pick up nuances in grammar, tone, and context that many overlook. This man's journey teaches us the incredible potential of determination and innovative thinking. By relying on what he had, his ears and persistence, he unlocked fluency in a language he could never read. His story is a testament to human resilience and an inspiration for anyone learning English. Meet John, a man born blind, whose world has always been painted with sounds rather than sights. For many, the idea of learning a language relies heavily on visuals, reading textbooks, seeing flashcards, or watching videos. For John, this wasn't an option. Born into a small, close-knit community, he grew up surrounded by people who loved him deeply, but often doubted his ability to achieve things beyond basic survival. They admired his spirit, but quietly believed that his blindness would limit his opportunities. Yet, John refused to let his disability define his future. As he grew older, John realized that mastering English was key to pursuing his dreams of independence and connecting with the wider world. English wasn't just a language to him. It was a lifeline to opportunities, friendships, and freedom. However, learning it posed a daunting challenge. With no access to Braille materials and limited resources in his rural town, John knew he had to rely on his strongest asset, his ability to listen. At first, progress was painfully slow. He struggled to understand unfamiliar accents, complex grammar, and new vocabulary. Yet, John's heart burned with determination. Every morning, he tuned into English radio shows, letting the words and rhythms wash over him. He began repeating phrases aloud, mimicking the speakers until his tongue adapted to the unfamiliar sounds. He listened to audiobooks, absorbing not just the words but the emotions and context behind them. Slowly, the language started to feel less foreign and more like a companion. John's journey wasn't without obstacles. There were days when he felt overwhelmed, frustrated by his inability to grasp a new phrase or understand a conversation. He longed to read the words he heard, to see the letters that formed the sentences he was learning to speak. But whenever he felt disheartened, he reminded himself of his purpose, to prove that he was capable not just to others but to himself. One day, John's breakthrough came unexpectedly. He was listening to a podcast where the host asked listeners to call in and share their stories. Trembling with nerves, John dialed the number and spoke in English for the first time. His words were halting, and his sentences were imperfect, but he expressed himself, and the host understood him. That moment was transformative. It was the first time John felt truly connected to the language, and it ignited his confidence. From that point on, John's growth was exponential. He sought out more conversations, practiced speaking with anyone willing to listen, and immersed himself in English culture through radio dramas and songs. Over time, his accent became clearer, his vocabulary richer, and his sentences more fluent. John's story is a testament to the power of resilience and creativity. Despite the odds stacked against him, he found a way to achieve what many thought was impossible. His journey inspires us to embrace our challenges, knowing that with determination, even the toughest barriers can be overcome. Learning a language is challenging for anyone, but for John, who was born blind, the obstacles were immense. Unlike others who could rely on visuals, textbooks, charts, or flashcards, John had to navigate his journey to mastering English without ever seeing a single word. His challenges were unique and deeply intertwined with his condition, making his determination all the more remarkable. One of the most significant barriers John faced was his limited access to traditional learning tools. Language learners typically depend on written materials to build their foundation, reading sentences to understand grammar, looking at images to connect words with meaning, or using dictionaries to expand vocabulary. For John, none of these were an option. In his rural community, Braille materials were scarce, and advanced resources for the visually impaired were virtually non-existent. This left him with a glaring gap in access to the most common pathways for learning English. Without the ability to see written words, John's only resource was his auditory perception. This reliance on sound came with its own set of challenges. While auditory learning can be powerful, it also demands extraordinary focus and memory. John had to absorb words, phrases, and grammatical structures entirely by listening, often replaying audio recordings or radio broadcasts to grasp the nuances. Unlike written learners who can reference a word or phrase repeatedly at their own pace, John had to rely on his memory to recall what he'd heard, often struggling to remember complex sentence structures or unfamiliar vocabulary. Pronunciation was another steep hurdle. Without the ability to see how words were spelled, John couldn't easily make connections between sounds and letters, a fundamental aspect of language learning. He often mispronounced words because he lacked the visual feedback that helps most learners correct their mistakes. There were no phonetic guides or written tips to clarify the differences between words like through and though. His reliance on mimicking what he heard sometimes led to confusion when accents or speech clarity varied. Grammar, too, posed a daunting challenge. For most learners, understanding grammar comes from observing patterns in written text. John, however, had to piece these rules together through listening alone, without the benefit of seeing examples laid out on paper. This made it harder for him to grasp concepts like verb tenses or sentence structures, as he couldn't rely on visual cues to reinforce the patterns. Despite these barriers, John's resolve never wavered. He found creative ways to overcome each challenge, such as repeating phrases to improve his pronunciation and using context clues to decipher grammar rules. He sought out opportunities to converse with fluent speakers, learning through trial and error, and refused to let frustration derail his progress. John's journey reminds us that the path to success is rarely straightforward. The barriers he faced highlight the resilience required to achieve what others take for granted. His story is a testament to human determination, proving that even in the face of extraordinary challenges, persistence can lead to remarkable accomplishments. Every journey of transformation has a turning point, a moment when everything begins to change. For John, born blind and navigating the immense challenges of learning English without sight, that moment came when he discovered innovative methods that turned his disability into a unique advantage. These strategies not only revolutionized his learning experience, but also unlocked his potential to master a language many thought he could never fully embrace. John's journey had always been an uphill climb. Traditional learning tools were out of reach for him. No textbooks, no written exercises, no flashcards. His community, though supportive, lacked resources for visually impaired learners. Despite these limitations, John refused to let circumstances dictate his success. He began to experiment, searching for ways to immerse himself in English without relying on sight. One day, John stumbled upon the world of English podcasts. It was a revelation. Through podcasts, he discovered stories, conversations, and discussions that felt real and relatable. Each episode was a new lesson, introducing him to vocabulary, pronunciation, and the rhythm of the language. Unlike formal language courses, these podcasts were conversational and engaging, making learning feel less like a chore and more like an adventure. John listened attentively, sometimes replaying episodes multiple times to internalize the words and their meanings. Audiobooks became another lifeline. While others might find it tedious to listen to long passages without visual context, John saw them as treasure troves of knowledge. Narrators brought the language to life with their tone and inflection, helping John understand not just the words but the emotions and intentions behind them. He particularly loved stories with dialogue, as they gave him insight into real-life conversations. Over time, he began to mimic the narrators, practicing pronunciation and learning how to express himself with confidence. Music added yet another dimension to John's learning. Songs with their catchy melodies and repetitive lyrics made it easier for him to remember phrases and sentence structures. John sang along, using music to fine-tune his pronunciation and understand idiomatic expressions. Through songs, he also gained cultural insights, deepening his connection to the language. But the real turning point came when John began immersing himself in English conversations. He discovered that local radio stations often featured interviews and talk shows where native speakers discussed everyday topics. By listening intently, John picked up colloquial expressions, slang, and the natural flow of conversation. He started to piece together how sentences were constructed and how tone could change the meaning of words. These radio programs became his virtual classrooms, offering him a window into the world of spoken English. Technology also played a pivotal role in John's transformation. Screen readers, tools designed for visually impaired users, became his gateway to the digital world of language learning. With these tools, John accessed apps that provided interactive lessons, pronunciation guides, and vocabulary-building exercises. These apps allowed him to learn at his own pace, reinforcing what he heard in podcasts and audiobooks. The combination of auditory input and interactive practice accelerated his progress, making him more confident in his abilities. John's methods weren't just about consuming content. They were about active participation. He didn't simply listen passively. He engaged with the material. He repeated phrases, practiced speaking aloud, and even recorded himself to compare his pronunciation to native speakers. His dedication turned every podcast, audiobook, and song into a stepping stone toward fluency. What made these methods so transformative was John's ability to adapt them to his unique circumstances. He didn't see his blindness as a limitation, but as an opportunity to sharpen his auditory skills. Without the distraction of visual input, John's focus on sound was unparalleled. He could detect subtle differences in accents, intonations, and speech patterns that many sighted learners might overlook. This heightened sensitivity gave him an edge, allowing him to internalize the language in a deeply intuitive way. Over time, John's confidence grew. He began seeking opportunities to practice speaking, joining community events where he could converse with fluent English speakers. Each conversation reinforces learning, turning theoretical knowledge into practical skills. He embraced mistakes as part of the process, knowing that every error brought him closer to mastery. The turning point in John's journey wasn't just about discovering new methods. It was about embracing a mindset of resilience and adaptability. By leveraging podcasts, audiobooks, music, and technology, he found a way to overcome what once seemed like insurmountable barriers. His story reminds us that challenges, no matter how daunting, can be transformed into opportunities with the right tools and determination. John's journey is a testament to the power of innovation and persistence. His methods serve as an inspiration for anyone learning a new skill, proving that with creativity and dedication, even the most significant obstacles can become stepping stones to success. Learning a new language can be an intimidating task, but for John, born blind and without access to traditional learning tools, it was an extraordinary challenge. Despite the odds, John's journey to mastering English became a testament to the effectiveness of simple yet powerful strategies. Through trial, error, and sheer determination, he discovered techniques that not only helped him overcome his barriers, but also made him an inspiration to others. Repetition for memory retention. For John, repetition was the cornerstone of his learning process. Unlike sighted learners who can revisit words or phrases visually, John relied entirely on auditory input. To ensure retention, he would listen to phrases, sentences, and dialogues repeatedly until they became second nature. Whether it was an English podcast episode, an audiobook chapter, or a song, John would replay it over and over, committing the sounds, rhythms, and meanings to memory. This repetitive process helped him strengthen neural connections, making it easier for him to recall information. For instance, when learning new vocabulary, John repeated the words in different contexts to understand their usage better. Repetition wasn't just about rote memorization. It was about internalizing the language until it felt familiar and natural. Mimicking native speakers for pronunciation. One of the most critical aspects of learning any language is mastering pronunciation. For John, this meant paying close attention to how native speakers enunciated words. He turned every listening session into an interactive exercise, repeating words and sentences exactly as he heard them, whether it was the crisp articulation of a narrator in an audiobook or the relaxed tone of a radio host. John imitated their accents, intonations, and rhythms. This practice allowed him to pick up on the subtleties of spoken English, such as stress patterns, pauses, and inflections. Mimicking native speakers also helped John sound more natural when speaking, by focusing on how words were pronounced rather than how they were spelled. He avoided common pitfalls that many learners face when transitioning from written to spoken language. Practicing conversational English with others. While listening and mimicking were essential parts of John's learning strategy, nothing could replace real-life interaction. Understanding a language is one thing, but using it in conversation is an entirely different skill. John sought opportunities to practice speaking with others, whether it was a friendly neighbor, a community volunteer, or even strangers willing to engage in casual chats. These conversations were invaluable for several reasons. First, they forced John to think on his feet, constructing sentences in real time. Second, they provided him with immediate feedback, allowing him to correct mistakes and refine his understanding of grammar and vocabulary. Finally, speaking with others helped John gain confidence. Each successful interaction reinforced his belief that he could communicate effectively in English. John's approach to conversational practice was unique in that he embraced errors as learning opportunities. instead of feeling discouraged when he stumbled. He used those moments to identify areas for improvement. Over time, his exchanges became smoother and more fluid, reflecting his growing command of the language. Consistent exposure to real-life dialogues and natural speech. Consistency was another key element of John's success. To immerse himself in the language, he made English a part of his daily life. He listened to radio shows, podcasts, and interviews, absorbing the natural flow of conversations. These programs exposed him to various accents, speech patterns, and cultural contexts, helping him understand the nuances of the language. John didn't limit himself to formal learning materials. Instead, he sought out content that reflected how people actually spoke in everyday situations. This consistent exposure helped him bridge the gap between textbook English and real-world communication. For example, by listening to interviews, he learned how to ask and answer questions naturally. Radio dramas taught him how to use tone and emotion to convey meaning. Songs introduced him to idiomatic expressions and informal speech. The beauty of this approach was that it didn't feel like studying. John enjoyed the process of discovery, letting the language seep into his consciousness organically. By surrounding himself with English, he created an immersive environment that accelerated his learning. The synergy of techniques. What made John's strategies so effective was how they complemented each other. Repetition reinforced what he heard. Mimicking improved his pronunciation. Conversational practice tested his skills, and consistent exposure kept him connected to the language. Together, these techniques created a holistic learning experience that addressed all aspects of language acquisition. John's journey is a powerful reminder that language learning doesn't have to rely on expensive tools or formal instruction. With creativity, perseverance, and the right strategies, even the most significant obstacles can be overcome. His success is a testament to the human spirit's ability to adapt and thrive, inspiring others to pursue their goals no matter the challenges. Learning English as a blind person was no small feat for John, who faced numerous obstacles that many learners take for granted. Without the ability to read or access visual aids, John had to find creative ways to navigate challenges like learning vocabulary, mastering grammar, and developing fluency. His journey was a testament to the power of resilience, adaptability, and determination in overcoming adversity. Learning vocabulary without reading. One of the first hurdles John encountered was learning vocabulary. For most language learners, visual aids such as flashcards, written exercises, and word lists play a crucial role. However, John lacked access to these tools, forcing him to rely entirely on auditory methods. To overcome this, he turned to audiobooks, podcasts, and conversations. Whenever he heard a new word, he would make a mental note of its pronunciation, context, and tone. To reinforce his memory, John repeated the word aloud, often in different sentences. This repetition helped him internalize the vocabulary without needing to see it. Additionally, John used technology, such as screen readers, to access language learning apps that offered auditory explanations and quizzes. These tools allowed him to hear and practice words in various contexts, building his lexicon in a systematic yet engaging way. John also leaned on context-based learning. Instead of memorizing words in isolation, he focused on understanding them within phrases or sentences. For instance, if he heard the word delicious while listening to a cooking podcast, he associated with food and taste. This contextual approach not only helped him remember words, but also taught him how to use them naturally, mastering grammar without visual aids. Grammar posed another significant challenge. Without written rules to reference, John had to rely on patterns he observed through listening. He immersed himself in content that emphasized spoken English, such as radio programs, interviews, and conversational podcasts. By paying close attention to how sentences were constructed, John began to recognize grammatical structures intuitively. For example, he noticed how questions were formed by listening to interviews. "What do you think?" Or, "How does that work?" Over time, he internalized these patterns and applied them to his own speech. Similarly, by listening to stories or audiobooks, he picked up on verb tenses, prepositions, and sentence order. This natural absorption of grammar, though slower than formal study, proved effective in helping him speak correctly. To reinforce his understanding, John practiced speaking aloud, using the phrases and sentence structures he had learned. He also engaged in conversations with fluent speakers, where he could test his knowledge in real time. Whenever he made mistakes, he used them as learning opportunities, asking his conversation partners for clarification or corrections. This trial and error approach helped him refine his grammar and gain confidence. The role of resilience. John's ability to overcome these obstacles was rooted in his resilience. He refused to let his blindness define his limits or hinder his aspirations. Instead, he approached every challenge as an opportunity to grow. His determination to succeed drove him to experiment with different methods, from mimicking native speakers to practicing with technology. There were moments of frustration, especially when progress felt slow or when he struggled to understand complex aspects of the language. However, John's unwavering belief in his potential kept him going. He celebrated small victories, mastering a difficult word, completing a conversation, or understanding a new phrase, and used them as motivation to tackle the next hurdle. The power of adaptability. Adaptability was another cornerstone of John's success. Recognizing that traditional methods wouldn't work for him, he embraced alternative approaches tailored to his needs. For instance, instead of reading grammar books, he immersed himself in spoken English to learn grammar naturally. Instead of writing down vocabulary, he relied on auditory repetition and contextual understanding. John also adapted to technological advancements, using screen readers and voice-based apps to access language resources. These tools not only made learning accessible, but also allowed him to customize his experience. By combining traditional techniques with modern innovations, John created a learning process that worked uniquely for him. A journey of inspiration. John's journey was far from easy, but his resilience and adaptability turned every obstacle into an opportunity. He proved that with determination and creativity, even the most significant barriers can be overcome. His story is a reminder that learning isn't about having perfect resources. It's about making the most of what you have and believing in your ability to succeed. For John, the process of mastering English wasn't just about language. It was about proving to himself and the world that no challenge is insurmountable with the right mindset. His story inspires us all to persevere in the face of difficulties and find innovative ways to achieve our dreams. For John, the journey of learning English was not just about acquiring a new language, but transforming his life in unimaginable ways. The moment he realized he was fluent marked the culmination of years of effort, perseverance, and unwavering determination. It wasn't just a linguistic milestone. It was a triumph over adversity that reshaped his identity and opened new doors of opportunity. The first successful conversation. John vividly remembers the day he had his first fluent conversation in English. It was during a local community event where he met a visitor who spoke only English. Nervous but eager to test his skills, John mustered the courage to start a conversation. The words came out smoothly, sentences formed effortlessly, and for the first time, he felt truly understood. The interaction lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity of triumph. John spoke about his interests, asked questions, and even cracked a small joke. The visitor, impressed by John's fluency and confidence, complimented his English. That simple exchange was a turning point. For John, it was proof that his hard work had paid off and that he was capable of meaningful communication in a language he had once only dreamed of mastering. Achievements, helping others and public speaking. As John's confidence grew, so did his desire to use his skills to help others. He began volunteering at a local organization that supported visually impaired individuals. His ability to communicate fluently in English allowed him to mentor others, sharing his techniques and inspiring them to pursue their own learning journeys. John conducted workshops, introducing others to the methods that had worked for him, such as repetition, mimicking native speakers, and leveraging technology. One of John's proudest moments came when he was invited to give a speech at a regional conference for the blind. Standing on stage, addressing an audience of hundreds, he spoke passionately about his experiences and the transformative power of language. His eloquence and heartfelt delivery moved the crowd, earning him a standing ovation. For John, public speaking was more than just an achievement. It was a moment of empowerment. It allowed him to share his story, advocate for accessible education and proved that limitations can be overcome with creativity and determination. How learning English changes life. Learning English didn't just enhance John's ability to communicate. It transformed his entire world. Professionally, his newfound skills opened up opportunities he had never imagined. He was able to apply for better jobs, collaborate with international organizations, and even secure a role as a consultant for a language learning app designed for the visually impaired. Socially, English allowed John to connect with people from different cultures and backgrounds. He formed friendships with individuals he would have never been able to communicate with before, expanding his horizons and enriching his life. Conversations that were once barriers became bridges, helping him forge meaningful relationships. But perhaps the most profound change was the boost to John's self-esteem. Learning English gave him a sense of accomplishment that permeated every aspect of his life. It reinforced his belief in his ability to overcome challenges and instilled in him the confidence to pursue even greater ambitions. John's transformation wasn't just about personal success. It was about giving back. He became a vocal advocate for language accessibility, working to ensure that others like him could access the resources they needed to succeed. His story inspired countless individuals, proving that blindness or any other limitation need not stand in the way of achieving dreams. A ripple effect of transformation. The impact of John's journey extended beyond his own life. By sharing his story, he ignited a ripple effect in his community. People who had once felt limited by their circumstances began to see possibilities. John's success encouraged others to believe in their own potential and to strive for goals that once seemed out of reach. Parents of visually impaired children reached out to him for guidance. Educators sought his advice on creating inclusive learning environments, and organizations invited him to speak about his journey. John became a beacon of hope, demonstrating that resilience and innovation could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. The essence of transformation. For John, fluency in English was more than just a skill. It was a gateway to a new life. It transformed his identity, reshaped his aspirations, and gave him a platform to inspire others. Through his achievements, whether in a casual conversation, a workshop, or a public speech, he proved that language has the power to transcend barriers and create profound change. John's story is a testament to the human spirit's ability to adapt, grow, and thrive. It reminds us that success isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about the journey, the struggles overcome, and the lives touched along the way. For John, learning English wasn't just about communication. It was about transformation, proving that with determination and creativity, anything is possible. John's journey of learning English despite being blind offers valuable lessons that resonate with anyone pursuing personal growth, overcoming challenges, or mastering a new skill. His story is not only about learning a language, but also about persistence, creativity, and the power of resilience. Here are the key takeaways from John's experience. The importance of listening and immersion. One of the most critical lessons from John's journey is the power of listening and immersion. Since John was unable to rely on traditional reading methods, he turned to auditory resources like podcasts, audiobooks, and radio programs to learn English. This strategy allowed him to absorb the language in its natural context. He didn't just memorize vocabulary, but learned how words were used in real conversations, helping him understand grammar and sentence structures without ever seeing a word written down. Immersion through listening gave John a deep connection with the language, allowing him to pick up on nuances that visuals alone couldn't convey. For learners, the lesson here is clear. If you want to master any language, immerse yourself in it. Surround yourself with native speakers, watch shows, listen to music, and read aloud. This method helps you absorb the language passively and actively, which significantly improves comprehension and fluency, persistence, and innovative problem-solving. John's journey is a testament to the importance of persistence and creative problem-solving. Faced with the challenge of learning English without the benefit of sight, John didn't give up. He found alternative ways to learn. Using technology like screen readers, listening to language learning apps, and leveraging repetition and imitation to improve his vocabulary and pronunciation. Instead of seeing his blindness as an obstacle, he saw it as an opportunity to explore innovative ways to learn. The lesson here for all learners is that success doesn't always come through conventional methods. You must be adaptable, open to trying new things, and willing to push past your limitations. When you encounter obstacles, find creative solutions that work for you. If one path doesn't work, try another. It's persistence, not perfection, that leads to success. Encouragement for learners. If he can do it, so can you. John's story serves as a powerful source of encouragement for anyone facing difficulties in their learning journey. His experience proves that no challenge is insurmountable if you have the determination to succeed. He showed that, even with significant physical limitations, it's possible to learn and achieve goals through hard work and creative thinking. His story is a reminder that success isn't reserved for those with ideal circumstances. It's available to anyone willing to put in the effort. For learners struggling with their own obstacles, John's story offers a simple but powerful message. If he can do it, so can you. His resilience is a reminder that your dreams are within reach, regardless of the challenges you face. Whether it's learning a language, mastering a skill, or pursuing a personal goal, you have the power to overcome barriers with dedication and the right mindset. The power of belief. Finally, John's success demonstrates the power of believing in yourself. It's easy to feel discouraged when facing overwhelming odds, but John's journey highlights that belief in one's abilities is crucial. He believed that learning English was possible despite his blindness, and that belief motivated him to keep pushing forward. His unwavering faith in his ability to learn even when the task seemed impossible, propelled him toward his goals. The lesson for learners is that self-belief is often the first step in achieving any goal. Trust in your capacity to learn, adapt, and grow, and you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. John's journey to learning English is an inspiring example of how perseverance, creative thinking, and belief in oneself can help you overcome even the most challenging obstacles. His story is a reminder that success in learning and in life isn't about the resources you have, but about how you use them. If John, with his unique challenges, can achieve his goal of mastering English, there is no reason why you can't do the same. Keep pushing forward, be adaptable, and remember that with persistence and the right mindset, anything is possible. If John's incredible journey taught us anything, it's that the path to mastering English can start in the most unexpected ways. So, why not start your own journey today? Begin by listening to English every day, whether it's through podcasts, audiobooks, or English language songs. These small steps of immersion will add up faster than you think. As John proved, you don't need to see the words. You just need to listen, engage, and immerse yourself in the language to succeed. There are numerous resources to help you on your path. Apps like Duolingo, Babbel, and HelloTalk can provide interactive lessons, while platforms like YouTube offer endless content in English to help you practice listening and speaking. Even simple daily habits, like setting your phone to English or listening to an English podcast during your commute, can bring you closer to fluency. So don't wait. Start today and give yourself the gift of progress. Your journey might be different from John's, but with patience and persistence, fluency is within reach. Remember, John's story proves that no matter your circumstances, no matter the obstacles, learning English is possible. If you're willing to listen, engage, and learn, you too can achieve fluency. If you enjoyed John's story and want to follow more inspiring journeys like his, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's keep learning together, because your own English success story is just beginning.